Hi, this is video number 2 of Pharmacology of Diuretics. Let's talk about high ceiling diuretics in this video. Hi, this is Dr. Avinash. Welcome back to my sessions. In this video, I'll explain to you three important medicines: toracimide, bumetanide, and furosemide. Furosemide being the most important one. But to understand this video, it is very important that you have gone through my previous video where I have explained to you the mechanism of action that will make this video absolutely simple. So if you have not gone through that or you want to revise that video first, please do that and then come to this particular video. Let's talk about furosemide first. Furosemide is one of the most important high ceiling diuretic. This is so beautiful drug that it is active even in patients who have relatively severe renal failure. So it works brilliantly. It depends on how you're giving it. Okay, that will decide the onset of action. If you give it by IV, the action will start within 2 to 5 minutes. If you give it IM, the action starts in 10 to 20 minutes, and if you give it orally, then action starts within 20 to 40 minutes. The time duration of action remains same. Duration of action is between 3 to 6 hours. So this is basically a short acting diuretic. Okay, but very powerful one. It's a high ceiling diuretic. Furosemide has the mechanism of action that we have already described in my video number 1. It acts on site 2. Now I hope you remember site 2. This was the site where there was the sodium potassium 2 chloride symporter, right? This pump was responsible for pulling in sodium, potassium and 2 chloride and creating a corticomedullary osmotic gradient. I hope you remember this was the pump which was responsible for counter current multiplier. This was the one which was deciding whether the urine will become concentrated or not. So this pump was very important, right? This is how things work. When somebody is given furosemide, the furosemide enters into his body, distributes everywhere. The blood carries molecules of these furosemide into the kidney. Easy? Once in the kidney, furosemide does not get filtered at glomerulus. Instead, it continues to remain in the blood. The proximal tubular cells have a special transport protein called as the organic anion transporter. This organic anion transport catches hold of furosemide from the blood and throws it out into the lumen. So how did furosemide come to the lumen? Via organic anion transport. Now, once it is in the lumen, it reaches the ascending limb of loop of Henle. And there, it attaches to the site where chloride was supposed to attach. These pumps are very specific. If sodium, potassium and 2 chloride ions stick, the pump works. But if in place of chloride, furosemide sticks, the entire pump stops working. Now if the pump stops working, will there be reabsorption of sodium, potassium or chloride? No, sodium remains inside the lumen and it is on its way out of the body, right? So basically by blocking this pump, the counter current multiplier is gone, the corticomedullary gradient is gone. Simple. The kidney no longer has the ability to concentrate or dilute the urine. So free water clearance becomes 0. Positive free water clearance is blocked, negative free water clearance is also blocked. And actually more sodium reaches the distal convoluted and connecting duct, right? Distal convoluted tubules and connecting duct have a special mechanism for picking up sodium and giving away what? Potassium, right? So if sodium is reabsorbed and potassium is given away, the potassium excretion increases and the level of potassium in the blood will start to drop. Simple. Now this is very explainable by the mechanism of action from my previous video. Some things are not explainable. So for example, when we give this medicine, it changes the hemodynamics, the way in which blood flows in the kidney inside the entire body. How it does that, we are not very sure. But what we have noticed is, in a normal human being, more blood goes to the outer cortex of the kidney. After giving furosemide, the blood flow shifts from outer zone to the mid-cortical zone. How does furosemide do it? We don't know yet. We have also noticed that when given IV, furosemide can also cause systemic venous capacitance increase. What is increase in systemic venous capacitance? Venous capacitance literally translates into ability of veins to hold blood. Easy. If the veins are holding blood by dilating, the veins are retaining blood, they are not allowing the blood to go back to the heart. Then will the heart have too much load on it? No. That's exactly what I'm trying to say here. Decrease in left ventricular filling pressure, because the ventricles will not get full only, na? Less blood will come back because more blood is staying inside the veins. Now these actions we really can't understand how furosemide does. There's even more action that we are not 100% sure how furosemide does. Maybe the pump is present at many other places, not just kidney. But furosemide increases calcium and magnesium excretion. It raises blood uric acid level, so it can cause hyperuricemia. Okay, uric acid level is going up, and it can cause hyperglycemia also. Easy, simple to remember. Now, bumetanide is another high ceiling diuretic, which is 40 times more potent than furosemide. Very rapid diuresis it causes, and that's the reason why we love to give this drug in pulmonary edema. Simple. There are side effects, of course, of bumetanide. It causes severe hyperuricemia, more potassium loss, it causes more glucose intolerance. Actually, it causes ototoxicity and myopathy also. Rare, but can cause. One more difference between furosemide and bumetanide is the fact that bumetanide does not require that organic anion transporter for its secretion into the lumen. Plus, it's more lipid soluble, it's better bioavailable orally, so tablets are also worth giving, and its plasma T half-life is around 60 minutes. The third important diuretic, high ceiling diuretic, is toracimide, 3 times more potent than furosemide. The oral absorption is also more rapid, more complete, so it's still better as compared to furosemide in this aspect. Elimination T half is 3.5 hours, so it works for 4 to 8 hours inside the human body. Which brings me to, why are we discussing all these diuretics? Where are we going to use them? Wherever there is excess fluid in the body, you use diuretics to remove that excess fluid. For example, in cases of edema, right? Edema is excess fluid in the interstitial space. Na? Remove that fluid by using diuretics. Simple. We can also remove fluid from the lungs in case of acute pulmonary edema. Now, why would acute pulmonary edema happen? Left ventricular failure, myocardial infarction. Such conditions can actually cause pulmonary edema. High ceiling diuretics are very good for this. Even for cerebral edema, edema in the brain, you use a low efficacy diuretic like mannitol in cerebral edema. So we don't really prefer giving diuretics, high ceiling diuretics in cerebral edema. If you try to correct cerebral edema faster, there might be damage to the brain. You want to correct brain edema slowly. That's the reason why not preferred. But if you don't have an option of mannitol, then of course this is a next best idea. Even for hypertension, we can give it. Now, remember this. Diuretics cause massive amount of urine formation, right? You don't want your patient to suffer. You don't want your patient to have disturbed sleep. That's the reason why diuretics should be given morning time after breakfast, so that in case urine formation happens, it is during the day. If the patient takes diuretics at night time, then his sleep might be disturbed. No? So not a good idea to give it at night time. Even with blood transfusion, we can give furosemide, bumetanide, toracimide. Why? See, blood transfusion is overloading somebody's body with blood. Blood is fluid after all. No? So if you want to reduce that fluid, we can give them. And lastly, we can use it in cases of hypercalcemia and renal calcium stones. Hypercalcemia because furosemide will throw away excess calcium. Plus, in renal calcium stones, if there are small stones, by creating adequate pressure inside the kidney, urine pressure inside the kidney, these small stones can literally be shot out of the body. You don't have to do anything else. So just high amount of water you give, normal saline IV injection, give a furosemide injection, and the stone will probably be flushed out. So there you have it. Everything that you needed to know as far as high ceiling diuretics is concerned. Of course, we are left with the side effects of high ceiling diuretics. We'll talk about that in some other lecture, in some other video. Till the next time we meet, this is Dr. Avinash signing off for now. Take care. Keep rocking. Bye.